We've covered a lot of Commodore here on the channel, but today we're covering Commodore's version of a PC. This is the PC10, and this is Vintage Geek. Just a quick reminder, if you like what you see today, please consider liking and subscribing. It helps us a lot as we grow, and one of the things that helps us the most is if you would consider becoming a Vintage Geek member. You can do that at the website, and for just under $20 a year, you get access to all of our video content commercial-free, plus some bonus goodies and more. It's all at vintagegeek.com. After IBM released the PC in the 1980s, all sorts of companies came to the forefront to try to make compatible systems that could run IBM PC software. It was quickly becoming the standard in the business environment, and Commodore, having a huge line of computers and tons of success in the computer business, thought that they should get into the PC game as well. So today I wanted to take a look at Commodore's version of the PC. This is a considerable departure from the normal Commodore products that we've covered here on the channel. I was personally curious about how Commodore's version of the PC would stack up with the many other compatibles that were coming out around that time. Now, Commodore actually had a whole line of their PC products. It started out with the PC10. They also had the PC20, which I believe introduced an actual hard drive into the system. And then later on, they came out with the Commodore Colt, which was essentially a PC10-2 with some added features and upgrades. The machine that we're covering today is the PC10, and this is actually a pretty clean version of the PC10. We had a couple of these in the collection. One of them was in such rough condition I couldn't even identify it as a PC10 until we really got into the nuts and bolts of it. But this one's in pretty clean condition, and I think it's worth looking at today. I want to take a look at all of the features both externally and internally. I want to see just how faithful Commodore was to the PC design and how well this machine performs, so we're going to try some software with it as well. Let's get into it here on Vintage Geek. Let's start by taking a look at the front panel of the PC10. I kind of like how this is styled. Now, this would have been a direct competitor to the IBM XT. The IBM XT had the kind of inset front face where it was a slanted front face and then the actual drives kind of sat behind it. This one's more of a flush design, so everything is kind of on the level in the front panel, and it's very clean and simple. You've got your two floppy disk drives on the right. Those are two 360K 5¼ floppy drives. Pretty standard equipment there. You've got a couple of LED indicators for power and hard drive activity, and yes, there is a hard drive activity light on this machine even though it doesn't have the hard drive in it. Apparently they had these machines prepared to accept that option. And then also on the front panel is the actual keyboard connector, and it's kind of buried under the bezel in the lower part of the front panel of this machine. And that's actually interesting because later on they changed that design to have the keyboard port on the side of the machine instead, probably as kind of a space-saving design because I think the later models were a little bit smaller form factor overall. The back panel of this machine is also pretty simple. We start out with having a power supply that looks pretty standard for an XT or PC compatible at the time. It's got an IEC cord input on it. Then we also have some ports on the back. We've got an RS-232 port. There's a Centronics printer port built in, which I assume would be compatible with most printers at the time. And then in the actual card cage section where we have the expansion cards, there's a single ISA card in the machine that looks like it provides the CGA graphics. Later on, they built those functions into the motherboard. When they started making the Commodore Colt, they had CGA graphics and composite video on board, but this one just has an expansion card, and I'm actually not sure who made this particular CGA card, but it gives me a great excuse to open up the machine and take a look. Taking a look inside, we can see that we've got some expansion slots and a pretty open chassis design here. Lots of room to put additional components in the system, but the first question at hand is what kind of video card is it? It looks like this is an ATI CGA graphics card, probably pretty standard for the time, and I do believe that Commodore used ATI graphics for their onboard options later on, so that would make sense that this would have an ATI card in it. As far as I know, this probably just supports the standard CGA graphics modes. I'm not sure if it would also support Hercules and some of the other graphics modes available, but we probably won't know that until we really get into some of the software. Looking at the rest of the motherboard here, I can see that this was made in 1985. The label on it actually says Commodore PC Combined Board, and I assume that's because they probably used the same motherboard for the different variants of the system, whether it was the PC10 or the PC20. And I don't see a lot of integrated peripherals on the board itself, except for the floppy drive controller, which looks like it has a ribbon cable going directly to the two 5¼ floppy drives that are mounted in the chassis. There's a large opening in the chassis that looks like it would accommodate a hard drive of some kind. Commodore actually used in some of these machines a kind of proprietary IDE bus, so it wasn't the normal hard drive bus you would find in a PC compatible of the time, but I don't really know anything about that. We don't have a hard drive with this particular system, even though we do have the cables here that would have connected to the activity light and some of the other functions you would typically see with a hard drive. Expansion slot wise, it looks like this particular motherboard has 5 ISA expansion slots on it, and of course only one of those is currently filled with the CGA adapter card. But it looks like there's a decent amount of room for expansion. One of the complaints I read about later models was that they only had 3 slots, I believe, so this one's a little bit more fully capable as far as adding things to the system later on. There is one other card plugged into the system, and this is in a non-standard slot. It looks like this is the RAM expansion board for the Commodore. Now this may have taken it to the full 640K that I believe came with the system. I'm not exactly sure how that's configured, but it's interesting that there's a separate daughter board for the RAM chips in this Commodore. Everything looks pretty clean and pretty serviceable. There's a BIOS chip on board that says BIOS 2.03. I'm not sure how many different versions of BIOS they had over the years for this PC series. I'm sure we could figure that out with a little bit of research or some help from you, the viewer. It's pretty standard overall. The power supply looks like it was Commodore specific, but it probably delivers the same voltages and currents that you would see in a normal XT supply. So not too much to cover there, and I want to give it a try. So let's get into it and see if we can test some software with our Commodore PC10. I did want to make a quick note that the monitor we're using today is actually an IBM CGA monitor. The Commodore monitor that we have that actually does seem to match the system is not currently functional. I do have the matching keyboard that came with the Commodore PC10. Unlike the IBM counterparts at the time, this keyboard does not have any of that clickiness that we've come to associate with other keyboards that IBM made famous. The floppy drives in the Commodore system are being problematic for us, so for expediency, today we're going to be loading things into the system using a GoTech through the floppy drive interface. So let's get into it here. We're going to boot into DOS. This would have been the version of DOS that came with the PC10. So we've got Commodore BIOS, revision 2.03, just what we saw on the chip inside. As it's counting up the RAM, I can see that we are at 640K of RAM, which is what I expected. Yeah, it was kind of a fun little sound in the BIOS checkout there. MS-DOS version 3.21. Let's take a look at what's on that DOS disk very quickly. It should be pretty standard. Looks like all the files I would expect to see. Pretty basic, obviously. We can format disks, we can set the clock on the computer. What I do want to show is something that would have been specific software-wise to the Commodore line of products, the Commodore Colt tutorial. This would have been, again, for that later version of the system, but I'm hoping that it'll give us some demonstration functionality that we can show on screen. Tutor for Easy, from the makers of WordStar. So this is from MicroPro International Corporation from 1985, so it would be period appropriate to this machine. And now we've got a tutor menu. Looks like we've got several different options here. There's Over Easy, Keyboard Tour, Basics, Fancier Features, or Quit the Tutor. You're looking at the tutor menu. It lists the choices you now have. Check marks appear next to topics you've completed in the session. Let's see what the Over Easy tutor is all about here. Easy, from the makers of WordStar. Typewriter simplicity, word processing power. You don't have to concentrate on learning anything. Oh, thank goodness. Just enjoy the demonstration. Those are the kind of instructions I can really get behind. So it's showing us the keyboard layout. That's handy. All right, so it's telling us the 4 keys we're going to use: F1, F2, Escape, and Spacebar. With Easy, you can write any kind of document you want. I do appreciate the letter to mom about college. The money you gave me that was supposed to last all year seems to have ... I like that they include you'll never see a message saying your document is full. I actually can't imagine a time now when that would have been the case, but obviously that did exist at some point when you actually ran out of memory when you were typing a document, but it's really hard to even think about that in 2024. WordStar 2000, I don't actually remember that software. I like what they've done to represent the floppy disks in that they've actually just used keyboard characters for the spindle of the disk with the 2 parentheses. You can use spreadsheet information. Looks like pretty standard spreadsheet stuff there. Ooh, you can boldface the type. Now we're talking. I'm gonna be honest, this particular demo seems more like a sales pitch than it does an actual tutorial of any kind, as it's telling us all the different features of Easy and what it can do. That's pretty neat though. I like the actual printer printing its completed masterpiece. All right, 3 basic keys you'll use: F1, F2, and Escape. That's all I need to know, huh? Oh, wow, okay. F1 for help, F2 for menu, and Escape to get out. Honestly, the little animations are pretty impressive. I mean, it's running very slowly, so the actual refresh rate is kind of ruining the effect a little bit, but I appreciate the work someone put into that. Let me jump to the next program here and see what else we can do with our PC10. Since the PC10 was one of Commodore's attempts at making a business line computer, I thought it would be appropriate to look at some productivity software. All-in-one 15 Plus, the all-in-one productivity tool. I have to assume that the Plus is probably because there's 15 programs, but there may be other utilities included that they don't consider a full program. Making it with the Plus probably made it sound a little bit cooler. It's kind of like all those subscription services you get now. I'm kind of curious about the maintenance section here, if this is for maintaining the software or something to do with the actual computer. Modify system settings and defaults. Well, let's see what we have here. Database index file, a driver is not found, open error. Well, that's not a great start. How about time management? That would have been important for a business at the time. I don't think it liked that. We've tried a couple of the different programs in the all-in-one software package, and I'm not having any luck. It seems to be having trouble finding the database files that should have been there from the actual install, but the install is a little bit weird using the GoTech and trying to make all of that work. And if any of you have any experience with this all-in-one 15 Plus program, would love to hear from you in the comments below. Lastly, I'd like to see how a game performs on the Commodore PC10, and I thought a good one for this would be RoboCop, as we have a good copy here in the library, and we were able to port this over to the GoTech. So let's see how RoboCop runs on the Commodore. RoboCop, Data East. Oh, nice. We've got a leaderboard here. Looks like we've got 4 prime directives. It's a lot of shooting. Sweet. Yeah, I'm gonna have to turn the music off. Serve the public trust, protect the innocent, uphold the law, and classified. The ultimate crime stopper. Restore law and order if you can. Urgent, urgent. Riot on the downtown Main Street. Rush over there to put it down. Protect the innocent and uphold the law. Loading characters. Should call USA. Characters welcome. Okay, here I go. All right, well, the movement looks pretty good. His walk looks, I assume, are those now we're pointed the right way again. So if I hit space, can I fire? Oh, cool. Are these enemies? I mean, they're definitely taking away my power. Oh no. I'm not doing well. Sweet. This motorcycle just exploded. I was not expecting that. Well, that didn't work either. Uh-oh. Oh no. That's fine, I got 3 lives left. Hey, there's an item. It's actually labeled item. I appreciate that. Wait, can I point the gun upward? I can. Oh, nice. Got people falling out of windows. Wait, how did I take both of them down at the same time? I guess that's a special weapon or something? There's a television and stereo shop. That's where I'm headed. I will say that I've never played RoboCop for PC before. Actually, I don't remember playing this game on any system. I believe it was probably on the Nintendo at the time. It's not bad. For CGA graphics, it looks pretty decent. They did a lot of work with the graphic designs from what I can tell. The only problem I have with it is that it's very slow to react, and I think that's just because we're using an 8088. I could see this working a lot better on a 286 or 386 class machine. It's just hard to get the movement where you want it to go because there's a little bit of lag and reaction time problem. I don't know what that is, but that sounds bad. Oh, this is a boss fight. The Commodore PC10 takes on a boss fight. I was not expecting this. And I believe I died. At least I get to start where I left off. I am doing absolutely no damage to this at all. There's probably something I'm missing here. Let me just try to slowly jump and fire. Here, that's fine, I'll just walk past you, no problem. I was really hoping for that item. I don't know what it was, but I was unable to retrieve it. Oh, this is terrible. Now I'm trying to punch it. That is not going to work either. I genuinely died trying to get that item. The lag time really killed it in this boss fight. It was very difficult to do anything as the lag time and the responses were just not cutting it. But it seemed fun anyway. I'd like to maybe put this into one of our 286 class machines or a 386 because it looks like it could be really fun. Overall, I'm fairly impressed with the PC10. There's not a lot here that's super different from other PC compatible systems at the time, but I feel like it was a noble attempt from Commodore Business Machines to make something that could work in the office environment and be compatible with all the PC software at the time, and I think it was worth taking a look at right here on the channel. Just a reminder, if you like vintage tech and vintage computers like the Commodore PC10, be sure to like and subscribe. It helps us a lot as we grow, but one of the things that helps us out the most is if you would consider becoming a Vintage Geek member. You can do that at the website, and for just under $20 a year, you get access to all of our video content commercial-free, plus bonus extras and more. It's all at vintagegeek.com. Until next time, I'm Aaron, and this has been Vintage Geek.